Duncan Robinson's path to the NBA is not one that can be easily replicated. This is a guy who entered high school as a 5'7" point guard and rarely even played until he was an upperclassman. As a late bloomer, Duncan did a postgrad year at Phillips Exeter Academy to get more college looks. Ultimately though, he was offered 0 Division I scholarships and just 1 Division II scholarship at Merrimack. Duncan ended up starting college at D3 Williams, leading them to the title game as a freshman before transferring to Michigan. There, Duncan was an important piece for a Wolverine squad that ended up going to the title game in his senior year, but he still wasn't a super prominent name on anyone's draft radar, and he was utilized mostly as a standstill spacer rather than the dangerous off-ball mover he is today. Duncan ended up going undrafted in 2018. He signed a summer league deal with Miami, where he played well enough to earn a 2-way deal. In that process, Duncan became the only player from Williams to ever make the NBA, and the first Division III player to make it since 1999. Duncan only played 15 games with the big league Heat in his rookie season, but he put up an excellent G League season, and that led to Miami giving him a standard NBA deal. Kind of out of nowhere, Duncan became a starter in year 2. He ended up putting 13.5 points per game on a super efficient 68 true shooting percentage. He immediately established himself as one of the league's best shooters, hitting nearly 4 threes a night on over 44% shooting on top-notch difficulty. Duncan's shooting was key to Miami's offensive system that was heavy on ball movement, player movement, and one of the highest frequency DHO teams in the league. They really needed his spacing next to Jimmy and Bam. Duncan's contributions to their bubble finals run shouldn't be forgotten, especially that 7-3 performance in Game 5 of the finals to help keep the series alive. After another solid third season, Duncan earned a 5-year, $90 million contract in the 2021 offseason. From there though, things started to go downhill. Duncan's shooting slipped a bit, and he lost his starting job late in the season as Eric Spoelstra opted for Max Strus, who's not quite the shooter Duncan is, but he's still a major threat, is more stout than Duncan defensively, and had a little bit more off the dribble juice. Duncan played just 12.3 minutes per game in the 2022 playoffs, and then just 16 minutes a game the following regular season. That year, Duncan shot 32% from 3 in a career-worst year, falling to just 6 points per game and losing a ton of minutes. At multiple points, it was assumed Miami would try to move on from what looked like a mistake of a contract. Maybe they simply couldn't find a suitor, but it seemed highly unlikely that Duncan would be part of Miami's future. Now, he's always been more than your simple white guy spot-up shooter. From the moment he entered the NBA, he's been one of the league's most dangerous movement shooters, flying off screens, hitting tough looks over contests. His efficient footwork, quick release, and size ensures that he needs very little time to generate space. He's constantly moving off the ball, and it's tiring to keep track with, and his movement often causes confusion. Duncan knows how to create separation off the ball too, with change of pace, changing direction, luring his man to sleep, and running his man right into screens. At the end of the day though, Duncan had still been a specialist. For today's role players, only shooting isn't enough. Being able to attack closeouts, keep the offense moving when you run off the line is necessary, especially when game plans dial in during the playoffs. Then, when you factor in Duncan being a targetable defender, and you can see why Spoelstra opted in favor of Strus. Duncan started to show signs of life in the 2023 playoffs, flashing a newfound versatility to his game. That carried over fully to this past season, where Duncan's basic stats don't look much different than his first 2 seasons, but it's clear that he's become a much better, more well-rounded player than the one who originally earned the $90 million deal. Unlike most role players, you can actually run a sizable portion of offense through Duncan. His 2-man game with Bam is a staple of Miami's offense. The threat of Duncan's shot forces opposing bigs to step up high on handoffs or pick and rolls, often opening 4-on-3 situations for Bam to attack or find the open man. There's so many ball swing sequences that lead to a good shot, where Duncan wasn't the one that ended up getting the assist, but he's the one who got the chain moving. Duncan can turn aggressive off-ball coverages like top blocking into backdoor cuts for layups. Inside, Duncan has deft touch and can use either hand to finish over length. He's become much more willing to finish through contact. And instead of just hunting threes off the ball, and resorting to spacing the floor if it's not there, Duncan will actually curl inside and take what the defense gives him. The biggest factor in his transformation is his handle and increased comfort making plays off the dribble. It used to mostly be 3 or bust for Duncan. If he didn't get the look he wanted off of a handoff or off-ball screen, he'd have to just keep flipping with Bam until he finally finds space, or just swing the ball somewhere else and potentially stall out the offense. Now, Duncan is happy to just take whatever the defense throws at him. Drives aren't a last case scenario or even just a counter. He decisively attacks closeouts, can keep his dribble alive instead of uncomfortably trying to get rid of the ball as soon as possible. If defenders execute closeouts to run him off the line, he can maintain the offensive flow. Duncan's not going to rack up a ton of assist numbers, but his vision, decision making, and passing placement is very sound. He's perfected that slip pass to Bam, and he can find him inside for lobs and dump offs. He can viably run some pick and rolls. He plays with great patience to watch plays unfold, and he'll force drop bigs to commit to either he or Bam before deciding whether or not to lay it up or to feed it to Bam or find a shooter. Most role players capitalize off their star teammates tilting the defense, but Duncan's shooting gravity allows him to actually create plenty for others. This type of versatility, and knowing he can make an impact even if shots aren't falling, likely boosts his actual shooting confidence too. He can shoot 2 for 10 and still positively impact the offense now, so there's not as much pressure to nail every jumper. This year, Duncan's minutes shot back up to 28 per game. He shot nearly 40% from 3 on 7 attempts a game, and he put up a career-high 2.8 assists per game. He went from having 97% of his field goals assisted and being a pure shooter to an elite dribble pass shoot offensive role player who has the ideal complementary skill set. The mental fortitude to bounce back in this manner is commendable, especially for someone who's open about feeling imposter syndrome, getting benched, called overpaid, having her name as just a throw-in in trades. Instead of complaining about all of that and letting that affect him, Duncan just locked in and added to his game. That's a great example for all hoopers to learn from. That's going to do it for today's video. Thank you for taking the time to tune in.